All righty. Well, thank you guys for having me here. I know Pastor Tim's not here, but I thank him for this opportunity. You guys have been a great supporter of our ministry for a long time. I've been with the organization for a little over 3 years. And when I started, let's say right now we have a little over 60 churches or church organizations that support us in some way. But when I started, it was more like a dozen. And I always say you guys are like one of the OG churches from from our ministry, because you've been with us for a very long time. So I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of an overview of what our ministry does. I know because we've been connected with you for so long that a lot of you already know, but sometimes things have just been going on for so long that you've never really paid a lot of attention to what it is. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview. I'm going to give you a couple short testimonies, and then because it's Sunday morning, we are going to go into the Word just a little bit, because how are we going to have a Sunday morning service if we don't go there? So I am, again, with Alternatives Yes Ministries, and we rebranded a few years back. So our pregnancy center is called Alternatives Laurel Highlands Pregnancy Center. We're based out of Connellsville, where we've been serving for over 30 years. And we have a number of programs that we use to minister to pregnant women, new mothers, and families. And so kind of the core of our ministry for many, many years was our Mother's Pantry, and that is where anyone can come once a month and get diapers and clothes. We stock clothes up through 2T for their child. They can come once a month, diapers, clothes. There's no cost for that. There's no cost for any of our services. So they can come and get those things for free, and we also pass along other things that are donated to us, like, bouncers, things like that. And then about 20 years ago, we added a program called Earn While You Learn, which is an educational program that the women can take. And they're individual classes. There's almost 200 different classes they can choose from, and they cover everything from the pregnancy stages, what to expect, through labor and delivery, and then parenting. And there's also life skill classes like interviewing for a job, managing your budget, things like that. They can take these classes. They're all digital. They're really, really high quality. We can send them directly to their phone, or they can come into the office and meet with an advocate. And every time they do one of these classes, they earn a baby buck. And those baby bucks can be used to buy pretty much anything they could need for their baby. So cribs, car seats, strollers, all the big ticket items that you might be harder to find used. Obviously, you're not going to get a used car seat. And so not only does that provide them material goods, but the educational program is really strong as well. And it also provides a sense of self-sufficiency. So they're not just being given things, they're actually earning it for their child. They can even pick out some of the things, they want a specific type of car seat. And so it's really empowering to the women, because like I said, they come away with not just more knowledge, but a sense of, I did this, I earned this for my child itself. And then the other side of our program, which we launched just a few years ago, is our medical side. And so from there, we offer free pregnancy tests, and then we offer free early limited obstetric ultrasounds. So that we have a registered nurse on staff, and so she does the ultrasounds for the women. They get an early glimpse of their baby. That tells them if it is a viable pregnancy, meaning the baby is alive, it has a heartbeat, and that it is in the uterus, so we know it's not ectopic and a danger to her life. And it also tells her how far along in her pregnancy she is. And so that's important because by far the biggest trend in abortion these days is the abortion pill, which is really, really easy to get. I could order it on my phone in under 5 minutes. They'll mail it right to your house. You don't even have to meet with a doctor. It's very, very easy to get, but that is only considered safe per the FDA through 10 weeks of pregnancy. So when people contact us and say, I'd like to get the abortion pill, I'm thinking about an abortion, we tell them, we don't provide abortions, but you can come into the center and we can do an ultrasound and see how far along you are. Because what we really, really don't want is women taking those pills when they're farther along than they think they are. And the fact is that the women that come to us are usually wrong about how far along in their pregnancy they are, one way or the other. And so, yeah, it's, if you think that it's bad to take the abortion pill early on when the baby is very, very small, it's infinitely more traumatic to the woman if they do that alone and they're further along in their pregnancy and the baby is larger. It can be a very, very traumatic experience. So we try to get her to come in, see what, how far along she is. She can meet with our client advocates. We talk with her through her options. And then we've had a very, very, very positive response to the ultrasound program since it launched 2 years ago. We have done over 70 ultrasounds so far this year, and that number is growing. And because that number is growing, our next big adventure is that we are actually moving. So we've always been based in Conninsville, right by North Manor Ballfield, and we have 2 years ago opened a satellite office in Uniontown. We're actually closing both of those locations and merging them together into one new, larger location that's right along Route 119, catty corner from the fairgrounds. So Dunbar is actually the address for it. It's, if you've ever driven past there, right past the Laurel Mall, there's a big blue sign that says Health First Medical Center. And so we're going to be in that building with a bunch of other doctors. There's a pharmacy in that building. It's not only going to give us more space, but it's going to give us a much more professional appearance for women that are coming to us, much more comfortable. We'll have 2 entrances, one for our medical services and one for our resources and educational classes, so that women who are coming to us for ultrasounds feel much more comfortable. It's very much a very clinical experience for them. It's just like going to a regular doctor's office. And so we're really, really excited about that move. We're all packed up at the Conninsville office right now. We're actually moving this coming week, and we'll be open at the new center in November 4th. Will be our first day open there. So we're really excited about where God has taken us and how he has gotten us this far. And you guys are a big portion of how we've been growing and successful. So just to give you a couple ideas about the kinds of clients we see. A few months ago, a teenager came to us, and we see women and girls from, teenage years clear up through. There's been someone with us that was 40 in the time that I've been here. And people in all different walks of life find themselves unexpectedly pregnant. And that's a scary situation. And so we're just there to walk with them and kind of talk them down off that ledge, because I always say finding out that you're pregnant can be scary even in the best of scenarios. Like, I have 3 kids. They were all planned. They were all wanted. They were all welcomed, I think. But I think there's still that moment with each of them where you're like, what have I done? Like, this is, they're going to give me a baby and I'm going to take it home. And I remember with my 3rd one, my other 2 were already getting a little bit bigger. And I'm like, I'm starting over. Why did I do this? So it's scary even in the best of scenarios. And it can be especially scary if you weren't planning on it and all the pieces aren't exactly where you want them in your life. So we had a teenage girl come into the center, and she told us on the phone when she made the appointment, she said, my mom's coming with me. She says, but I don't want my mom to come back in the room with me when we get there. And we said, okay, that's fine. So she came in, and we asked mom to wait in the lobby, and the girl came back, and she said, my mom is really mad. She said, she does not want me to have this baby. She says, my family really, really, really wants me to have an abortion. And she said, and I don't want to do it. And so we talked with her about, her family life and her situation. And, we told her, we said, your mom loves you. And it was obvious from talking with her that her mom did love her. We said, and your mom wants to protect you. and she wants what she thinks is best for you because she's scared just like you're scared. We're like, but right now, you are now also a mother. And so while your mother is trying to protect you, it is now your job to protect your child. And of course, we talked with her about the laws, and there are laws in Pennsylvania. No one can compel you, can force you to have an abortion against your will. But we don't want her to have to take legal actions against her mother. We want them to come to peace with this together and with one another. And so she was still really scared. And they did the ultrasound, and the ultrasound came up on the screen. And she said, she was holding back tears, and she looked at our client advocate and she said, "Do you think I can do this?" And we said, "Yeah, we think you can." And she cried, and then her mother came back, and it was a long process with her mom and everything, and but ultimately they came together as a family. They agreed that they could do this as a family, and she's due soon. She's gone on to do the classes with us, and it took some time. There's a sense of reconciliation that has to happen, and it's not an easy situation, but it is a doable situation, and we're just blessed that we were able to be a part of that. Another couple that came to us that's probably more indicative of the typical couple, if you can say that there's a typical client of ours. They came to us, and they were young, but they weren't teenagers. They had their own apartment. They were both working entry-level jobs. They were stable. They clearly loved each other. And they said, we want to get married. We want to have kids. It's just not the right time. And so, their thought process is, we'll have the abortion now, we'll get a little bit more stable, we'll get a little bit better jobs, we'll get a little bit nicer apartment, and then in a few years, we'll start and we'll try again. And let's face it, there is no ideal time to have a child. There's always going to be some sort of struggle. And yes, there are, better times. Obviously, if two people are married and they're stable and they have a good job and they have family support and they have a good place to live, like that is what you want. But if any of those pieces are missing, you can still fill them in. And so the guy, I remember him specifically because he was doing everything right. He came to the appointment with her. He held her hand. He kept saying, it's her body, her choice. All the lines that society would tell you is how you are a good and supportive husband or boyfriend in this scenario. But he was not stepping up and saying, we can keep this child. We can do this. I know we can do this. And until that ultrasound came up on the screen. And his mouth just sort of dropped open, and he just kept saying, "That's a baby. Like, that's a baby." He said that several times. And it's one of those things where we're thinking like, well, yeah, it's a baby. But society has lied to an entire, more than one generation of people that have told them, A, if things aren't perfect, now's not the right time, and B, it's not a baby essentially until you want it to be a baby. It's just a clump of cells is what they say repeatedly. So it was a real light bulb moment for him and for a lot of our other clients when they see the heartbeat, they see the baby wiggling around on the screen and dancing about and things like that. And really that's what the ultrasound does, is allow people to take it from a concept to a reality, from I'm pregnant, that's just like a concept, to I have a baby now. And so, again, we just try to be there for these women, for these families, give them the resources so that they can parent effectively, whether that be the material resources and the educational resources. We also we give out thousands of referrals every year to things like WIC and all the other social service programs. We connect them with churches, we connect them with food pantries, we connect them with housing assistance, whatever it is that individual is struggling with. We try to make the connections to fill in the gaps so that their pregnancy can be joyous and it can be successful, and they can be, we don't want them to just have the baby. We want them to be successful parents. And so we try to put all the resources in place to make that happen. And again, that's pretty much what we do, and that's what your church's support has enabled for us. And one other quick program I want to touch on real quick is a program we started a little over a year ago called Echoes of Forgiveness. And so while we hope to someday live in a world where abortion is unthinkable, we will never believe that it is unforgivable, because statistics tell us that they're saying a quarter of women will have had an abortion at some point in their life. And so it's very likely that somebody in this room has had one. I know there's people on our staff that have had one. Every church I go to, somebody comes up to me and they say, I remember this lady came up to me on a cane. She said, "I wish I knew about you in 1968. And so it sticks with you. And for some women, they're able to process it and they're able to move on. And some, it really hangs heavy on their heart for a really long time. And so while we, like I said, we hope future abortions never happen, the ones that have happened, we would like to see healing for anybody who's suffering from that. So our Echoes of Forgiveness program is like it's a 12-week mentoring Bible study program that's just designed to bring healing for women who have had an abortion in their past. And so if that is something that resonates with you or somebody that have them reach out to us. We would, everything we do is confidential, but we would love to connect you with Tiffany. She runs that program for us, and we would just like to see you not suffer from any ongoing shame or guilt or anything like that you might be feeling. So, like I said, I do want to move into the Word for just a few minutes today. They told me I could have as much time as I wanted. I'm Pentecostal, so, but no, I will try to keep it. Appropriate for you guys. So moving into the Word as we move into that part of today's service, I want to start by just reading you the mission statement of Alternatives Yes. And that says that the Christ-centered mission of Alternatives Yes is to compassionately help those facing pregnancy and provide life-affirming services that protect and enhance their lives, their children, and their families through pregnancy and beyond. So this morning we're going to talk about that word compassion. Now, the Greek word for compassion, as used in the New Testament, is splachnizima. And I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's how, splachnizima. And what that does is it takes the root word splachna in Greek, which means guts, and combines it with the word for movement. So it is literally a stirring of the guts. And I think we've all felt that at some point. The butterflies that you get when you first start to fall in love, that feeling you get when you're like, oh, I should take this shortcut down this dark alley, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't take this shortcut. Like, that's that stirring in your guts. And in first century Greek thought, the seat of emotion was in the guts. So where we would say, like, I love you with all of my heart, they would say, like, I love you from the depths of my guts. So what separates compassion from other emotions is a sense of movement. So if you look at words like sympathy and empathy, which are also derived from the Greek, pathy means pain or suffering, and sim and em means with or in. So it's feeling pain or suffering with someone, either because you have experienced it yourself or just you grasp the concept of what they're going through. And so those are good emotions. You should, feel sympathy for people when you hear that somebody's loved one has passed away, or they're going through a hard time. Absolutely. But what separates sympathy from compassion is a sense of movement. So we're going to move into Matthew, if you have your Bibles with you. If not, I'm going to read it. So we're going to be in Matthew chapter 9. hate it when I open up my app and it's always like, do you like this app? Do you want to? I'm like, not now, Bible app. Maybe I should just leave a review for it so it stops asking me that. So we're in Matthew chapter 9, and I'm not going to read the whole chapter to you, but if you glance through it, it is like just a rundown of Jesus's miracles. So we get that Jesus forgives and heals a paralyzed man, and then Jesus raises a girl back to life, and then Jesus heals a sick woman, and then Jesus heals 2 blind men, and then Jesus drives out demons and heals a mute man. Like, it's just one after another, Jesus doing awesome things. And then we get down to Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 38, which I'm going to read. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." So there we see it, where Jesus was moved with compassion. And you'll see this again and again throughout the New Testament. In Matthew 14, we see where Jesus was moved with compassion to heal the sick. In Matthew 15, he was moved with compassion to feed the multitudes. And in Matthew 15 specifically, it says that when Jesus saw the multitudes, it says that he felt bad because they'd been following him around for 3 days and they hadn't had anything to eat. But Jesus doesn't just feel bad. He doesn't just say, like, man, that's really unfortunate. You guys have been following me for 3 days and haven't had anything to eat. You should probably go get something to eat. Like that, aren't you hungry? People are going to start passing out soon. He doesn't just feel bad for them. He does something about it. He's moved with compassion and moved to do something about their need. And you know what else he doesn't do? He doesn't say, when the little boy comes with the bread and the fishes, he doesn't say, bread and fishes? We have that every day. Like, can't we get some lamb over here? Bread and fishes? Like, seriously, that's the best you can do? Jesus worked with what he had. He worked with what was brought to him. He worked with what the disciples had available. He didn't make them feel bad because that was all that they had to offer. And he didn't have a lot, but he trusted God with what he did have. Now, the big benefit of being Jesus and not us is that he has faith a lot larger than a mustard seed. So he knew what the Father was capable of, and he trusted him to make it happen. And sometimes we think that what we have to offer isn't good enough, isn't big enough, isn't important enough. But God didn't tell the little boy to come back when he had more fishes. He told him he took what he had and he multiplied it to serve his purpose. In Matthew 20, Jesus meets with 2 blind men and he asks them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they replied, "Lord, let our eyes be open." Now, I remember reading that and thinking, like, duh. Like, he asked these blind men, what do you want me to do for you? Of course they want to see. Why is he asking them that? But it's important to note that Jesus doesn't just give them what he thinks they need. He asks them what their needs are. Now, of course, him being Jesus, he did actually know what their needs were. But he also knew that he was being watched and that he was being studied and that he was being written about and that 2,000 years later, we would be following his example. And when he did these things, unlike him, we are not omniscient. So we don't know everything. We may think we know what people need, but we need to ask them. We need to investigate what their actual needs are. And like I said, that's what we do with the women that come in. You know, you might think like, well, their need is just diapers. Well, no, maybe their need is housing. You know, maybe their need is to get out of an abusive relationship. Maybe their need is X, Y, Z. And so we need to meet with them where they are, find out what their needs are, and then work to meet them. It's so important to listen to people because they have legitimate fears, legitimate struggles. And at our center, those fears might look like, where is the money going to come from if I keep this child? Where is the emotional and physical support going to come from? Where am I going to live? Is my boyfriend going to leave me? Are my parents going to be furious with me? And these are legitimate fears. We need to validate those fears as real and upsetting, but then talk them through their options. We can't solve every problem. I can't solve every problem. You can't solve every problem. Our ministry can't solve every problem. But you know who can solve every problem? God. God can tackle any scenario that may seem insurmountable to you, to me, to the people that are struggling, and provide a solution. And sometimes, just sometimes, that solution is you. Or that solution is me, or that solution is Alternatives Yes, or that solution is the Salvation Army, or the Center for the Blind, or community ministries, or any number of other churches or ministries or outreaches that God has put in place to serve his people here on the earth, because he's not here in the flesh anymore to be working miracles among us. He's still working miracles, but he's doing it through you and through me and through the ministries and the organizations that he's ordained here on this earth. So if we were to come across a blind man today, we probably wouldn't be able to lay hands on him and restore his sight. I hear it still happens. I've never seen it. I'm sure God is still working those kind of miracles, but we probably can't just lay hands on him and restore his sight. But what we can do is help him cross the street. We can sit down and help them fill out paperwork. We can donate money to blind associations that have the resources and the expertise to serve them. There are numerous different ways that we can serve and that we can be God's hands and feet here on this earth. We're going to go back into the Word just one more time in James chapter 2. This is, I'm sure, one you guys have all heard before. James chapter 2, 14 through 17. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. So my purpose here today is not to guilt you into supporting our ministry. You know, your church already supports us. I know some of you as individuals already support us. It's literally physically impossible to support everything with either your money or your time. No one can volunteer at the Blind Center and the Pregnancy Center and the homeless shelter and foster some kids and build water wells in Africa and house refugees from whatever global conflict is going on at the moment. It can't be done by any one person. And unless you're super, super wealthy, you can't even support all of those causes financially. And if you are super, super wealthy, you can see me after service. But there are limits for everyone and limits for what everybody has available to them to give. But what I am saying is that we are all called to live lives of compassion. The New Testament tells us over and over again in story after story that Jesus was moved with compassion. In 1 John 2, it says, anyone who says they abide in him meaning Jesus, ought also to walk as he walked. So what more can I say? If Jesus' earthly ministry was rooted in compassion for humankind, not only for their souls, but for their physical needs as well, and we are to emulate him, then so should our lives be rooted in compassion as well. So you can't give to everything, you can't participate in everything, and unless you're a very, very devout prayer warrior, you probably can't even pray for every cause every day. But what you can do is be open and sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit, see where he's leading you, and then obediently follow. There are seasons for all of us. Time, finances, and focus will change with your needs and your resources. You might be heavily invested in children's ministry when your kids are young, and then pivot to substance abuse or homeless ministry as the years go by. And you might be between jobs one year, and you've got all this free time, and so you volunteer to serve lunch at the soup kitchen. And then the next year, you might be working 60 hours a week, and all you're doing is cutting them a check. There are seasons for everything, and we just need to be open to where God is leading us to serve with compassion. And I do want to interject for a moment. I know I've talked a lot about giving and volunteering, but I don't want to understate how important prayer is as a ministry as well. But if you're going to make prayer your ministry, it needs to be purposeful. Too often we throw out, like, I'll be praying for you, or you'll be in my prayers, as sort of a platitude. If you're going to make it your ministry, and that's how you're going to serve, it needs to be done with purpose. In James 5:16, it says, "The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much." And fervent means having or displaying a passionate intensity. So if you want your prayers to count as your ministry, as your contribution, then they need to be regular and committed and passionate about what you're praying for. So I have 3 kids, I have a job, I have a house, I have a dog, I have a fish tank, all things I need to take care of on a daily basis, and I only have so much time. And let me tell you, I also only have so much money. And that's okay, because what I need to do, what we all need to do, whether I'm in a season of plenty or a season of drought, is to stop and ask the Lord, where do you want me? What do you need from me, and how can I be your hands and feet? And then, you ready for it? I have to actually do it. You can't just ask God where you should be, what you should be doing, and then stay where you're at. You have to actually do it. God created each of us for a purpose. And in Ephesians, we read that we are God's masterpieces, every one of us. You, me, unborn babies, unwed mothers, out-of-work dads, retirees and toddlers, we are all God's masterpiece. So as I close today, I want to encourage you to take a legitimate, reflective look at your life and evaluate how you are living compassion. And I would love if you decided that that meant you needed to be bigger supporters of alternatives, yes. But I would also love it if you decided to become foster parents, or you decided to serve in XYZ ministry. As long as you are opening yourself up to the Holy Spirit and where he's leading you, I don't think you can really go wrong with where you decide to serve. And so, again, thank you for having me here. I am going to close in prayer, although I know you guys have a little bit more after I'm done. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time this morning. I do want to mention, before I get off of here, I do have a sign-up sheet in the foyer and some bookmarks and things. If you would like to get our emails or our newsletters, we would love to send them out to you. We send out 1 email a month, 2 paper newsletters a year, just to keep you informed about events we have coming up, and some testimonies about the good things God is doing down our way. So I encourage you to do that. I'll stick around for a little bit after I'm done. I'm going to close my part out in prayer, though. God, we're thankful for today. We're thankful for this opportunity to gather together in your house, in your name. We are thankful to live in a country that affords us this opportunity to openly praise and to serve you. God, we pray as we go about our weeks, as we go about our days, that we are open to you, that we are open to where you would have us, that we are receptive to what you would tell us, and that we are obedient into where you will send us. Father, help us to follow you, to lean on you, to derive our strength from you, and to love you all of our days. Thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Lacy. As we continue, we will stand and sing hymn number 495, Jesus Saves.